Little preface here, my goal is for this video to be under 15 minutes, and I already decided not to cut this line, so if I fail badly, well, at least I had fun doing it. I've been a fan of Slay the Spire for a very long time now. So long that I remember being pumped when the first game was getting its third character. I'm not an A20 beast, but I do have over 250 hours in the first title, and I've always loved it. I know that Slay the Spire 2's been out for a bit, but I'm a busy guy. I have multiple jobs, a social life, I exercise, and I cook for myself. So that's to say, when I'm writing this script more than 3 weeks after launch, and recording it a week after that, I have 16 hours in the game. I've beaten it with every character once, and I still have a lot of epochs to unlock, which, we'll get into that one. I've beaten it with every character once, but I've barely started the Ascensions, and I still have a lot of epochs to go. This is basically going to be a video about me gushing over this amazing game that I didn't even know I could want until it was announced, because, spoilers, I think this game rocks. So the first thing to talk about is the art style. It's immediately pretty striking. It absolutely feels like it's the same series, but you can feel the evolution and the willingness and the ability to not just create so many creatures that fit the world, but also to adapt and adjust existing designs in ways that feel naturally correct. I feel like the Ironclad looks bulkier, even if it costs him his really cool looking sword from the first game. The Silent looks more agile with her more active stance and more visible body language, and the Defect has been lifting every single day and it shows. Regent and Necrobinder fit in well with the cast in the world, even if Regent looks more alien, because he literally is. Something else that's exciting about this game artistically is the game has a ton of animation now. Every enemy has some sort of animation at least, and the player characters do more than just breathe and lunge forward a bit when they're attacking. It's so sick to feel the game feel so alive. And what's impressive besides that is that it barely affects the speed of the gameplay. Effort was spent to make sure that you're playing the game as often as possible, even when everything has more flair. The area design and art for the events is, once again, perfectly done. The environments feel deeper and less friendly than the first title, and everything is so lovingly depicted. Card art is as good as always. Returning cards all have new art, most of it original, but a few of them are revamped versions of the first game. And we of course have more beta art. The beta art in the first game rocks. I love how rough and silly it usually was, especially when it was a play on words or very literal. Whose sequence on the Defect in particular was a gem. I'm sure Slay the Spire 2 will have some sort of feature to toggle it on once the game is finished and we have our secret Act 4. The music of the game is great. The horns feel just as important as they were in the first one, which is good. I don't think I could have survived without them. The elites and bosses have more intense tracks that are simultaneously more foreboding and able to amp you up. In fact, each boss has a variation to its theme, and some of them are more dynamic than others, like Vantum's theme changing as its tail changes positions, Test Subject switching it up with each new health bar, and the Waterfall Giant's theme changing when it's going to blow up. They're not all in the game yet, but what's there is great. I really like the Knowledge Demon's theme, the Act 2 Elite theme, Test Subject's theme, and the general theme of the Hive. The first game was definitely not devoid of story, but like the animations, the sequel takes it upon itself to flesh out the game like crazy. Slay the Spire 2 has epochs, which tell the player about the world and characters one small paragraph at a time. They all have unlock conditions that make sense and allow the player to reach certain benchmarks before getting certain facets of the story, and more importantly, access to new relics, potions, cards, and more. The order you unlock epochs is definitely not predetermined, but some are designed to be obtained before others to slowly open the door to more possibilities and add more reasons to start new runs. The reward of a new Act 1 blew me away. Not knowing if you'll start with Overgrowth or Underdogs is sick as hell, and I like how it changes how you think. I'm sure that there are plans for alternative acts for 2 and 3 to unlock at some point, and it's more than okay that we don't have them yet. It's just like Hades 2. We already have more content than the first game, so take your time and wow us. What's cool to me about alternate acts is it provides more elites and bosses per act, which obviously you can only pick from one set of 3 per biome, but that's still more variety and planning to be done. I do yearn for the day when I don't need to think about Entomancer in Act 2, so maybe we'll get there soon. And yeah, the epochs rule. I like being able to get lore more directly and refer back to it as I please. It also shows locked epochs so you can focus on certain goals if you want. It's an awesome system. But what's it like actually playing the game? It's kind of like going to your favorite restaurant and getting an appetizer and the most expensive item on the menu. Like, you love your usual go-to, but you decided to ball out and you didn't realize it could be this good. And damn, can you go back to how it was before? The answer is yes, by the way. Slay the Spire 1 still rocks. Existing characters function pretty similarly to last time, which is good. I think they should follow the same ideas and principles as before, but with new tools to either emphasize old archetypes in new ways or just make new archetypes. Ironclad still has block stacking, self-damage builds, exhaust builds, and strength maxing, but they all take different forms. With some old cards being gone and new cards entering the rotation, what's possible has changed. Exhaust decks aren't the same now that Corruption's a full art card that can only be obtained by an Ancient, which I haven't even seen myself, by the way. Also, I haven't heard or seen of Dark Embrace, so I wonder if that needs to be unlocked, or maybe it didn't return. Vulnerable has seemingly taken a new spotlight. There's stuff to inflict Vuln to draw cards, a power that makes Vuln stronger. I think there's a card to make vulnerable enemies do less damage. There's also Molten Fist to double vulnerable, and a card that converts enemy Vuln into strength gain, so it was a surprising synergy to find out after seeing several cards play off the status. Other characters can inflict Vuln, but not the same way Ironclad can, and I imagine that getting some of Ironclad's Vuln-powered cards on a different character would get out of hand potentially. I haven't played much Clad since I won on my first attempt and moved on to getting a first dub with the rest of the cast, but damn, I love this guy. Excited to play more. The Silent has changed more so, I would say. The first standout is Sly, which means that when a card is discarded, it plays. There was already stuff like this in the first game, but it didn't have a keyword or much prevalence, but with the Silent's continued focus on discard, it's perfect. I think there's a way to enchant Sly onto other cards, but I haven't seen it, or if there isn't, there should be. There's also tracking, which makes weak enemies take double damage for the rest of the fight. I've only gotten it once, but that's like insane, right? It shouldn't work like that. It blows Vulnerable out of the water and makes Terror from the first game look like an underpowered card. I should play more and see how I feel, but that's an instant take if you're not fully committed to Poison. Speaking of, Poison's different now that we have Accelerant but not Catalyst. But that's another thing I'm not positive on. I haven't unlocked every card, and I haven't seen Catalyst, but who knows? A lot of you watching probably. Shifts are back, and those are kind of samey from what I've seen. The really notable change is Blade Dance exhausts, and everything is worse now. But at least it isn't the old Blade Dance that only made 2 Shivs or 3 on upgrade, right? Shivs overall feel better to play in a world without Time Eater. The Entomancer can suck my dick and balls, but at least he's not an act boss. The Defect is crazy as always. He's got new Glass Orbs, which I haven't really gotten to explore. They deal damage to every enemy, but the damage decreases every turn, so you're actively incentivized to pop them for better value. I haven't messed with them since I beat a run with Defect on the first try and moved on to the other characters, so everyone had a dub. Lightning and the other returning orbs feel about the same as before, with Lightning still being my favorite. Tesla Coil is a card that really stuck out to me for being a 0 cost that procs all your Lightning orbs. And there's Voltaic Surge, which is very similar to Thunderstrike, but uses focus instead of strength, which I assume makes it better in most situations. Again, I've only played so much of each character. Genetic Algorithm becoming a rare is a little wild, but I can understand why they did that. It helps the scaling be more reasonable when you're unlikely to get it in Act 1, which is unfortunate, but the block gain per use is better, so it's a trade-off. The Regent is my new best friend, though. I love this arrogant bastard so much. Brother doesn't even stand on his own 2 feet. Oops. Don't think about it. I adore that everybody's taking on the Spire for some serious reason, and everybody's tortured in some way, except the Regent of Staris, who's bored out of his dome and goes to Prion to fix that. And he's so mad about the Architect that he wants to beat him just for pride. At least he has a winning game plan of always playing better. Anyway, Regent has an alternate unique resource with stars, which stick between turns but not fights. They're a really cool concept, and I like how there's something you can choose the importance of. I don't think you could realistically fully abandon them, but you don't need to revolve around them. Although you should, because star posting is awesome. I love shit like Black Hole, Crescent Spear, Gamma Blast, Radiate, Stardust, and then Smith, which leads right into Forge. Sovereign Blade is a super nifty card that acts like a signature attack once you get something to forge it. It's a 2-cost retain attack with no damage cap, so you can use it whenever you need. I love building this thing up until it blows up an enemy. It also guarantees you'll have an attack to use until it's discarded and needs to be drawn again, but there's a special card just to get it back. For clarity, I'm not sure how good forging really is. I think there's a chance it's actually not great at all, but I really like big numbers and I really like having fun. Last up is Necrobinder. I was most excited to play her going into this because of her design and disturbingly low HP when it was first revealed. The very first trailer with her, she had 35 max HP, which sounds insane, and I had no idea how that was going to be justified, and the answer is that it wasn't. Necrobinder has a cheeky 66 max HP to start, with that being balanced by Osti. At least I think it's Osti. I originally thought it was Osti, but I heard Northern Lion say Osti, and I realized that it's probably supposed to rhyme with Ghosty. So Osti can gain max HP every fight from cards and auto-revives when defeated with 1 HP. He's also not affected by stat changes targeting you, but it's hard to give him stat buffs. But I'll take it if I can eat up weakness and stat decreases so he can slap enemies around and he hits for me. Souls are a weirdly easy resource to get and are totally non-committal to have, which rocks. Draw is extremely important, and it's good that Necrobinder can passively generate it while doing other things. Then there's also Doom, which is like if Poison was worse, but compared to stacking Poison, it's a lot easier to get higher Doom stacks. The reason it's worse overall is that enemies die to it after their turn instead of before it, and they don't take ticks of damage. It's just a static change, basically a max HP drop. I feel like it needs one more card that scales with Doom already applied, but I really enjoy building up Doom on anything, especially bosses. There are also just enough enemies that reduce the damage they take to make Doom satisfying, like the Skulking Colony and Exoskeletons. One thing that's consistently exciting for me is discovering things from the first game that made it over. Like in the tutorial seed, I got excited to see Akabeko, and I got mad value out of it from a few times I top-decked Whirlwind Plus. Some cards that seemed non-essential were nice to see too, like Headbutt, Rampage, Acrobatics, Deflect, Hyper Beam, Chaos, and quite a few of the colorless cards. Probably most of them? There weren't a lot of cards I actively hated from the first game, and thankfully it looks like Lash doesn't exist, so we're fine. With the change in capabilities of each character, even some of the more essential cards from the first game were very comforting to see again, and the relic selection is the same way. I mentioned Akabeko, but there's also like White Beast Statue, there's Waffle, Shovel, Paper Crane, Mummified Hand made it back. Just saw Ice Cream in my last run and popped off despite having all the draw in the world and not getting anything from the relic. The new events are rad, and I don't seek out question spaces all the time, but I do enjoy getting them. An early cheese room for a chosen cheese is always appreciated. The D&D event is fun, like you go in alone, you get damaged and more rewards, or you go with the group and you get guaranteed safety but less money. That's a cool one. And there's one where you're on a bridge and you either get rid of a card or hold on, take some damage, and maybe get rid of something else. I was a little surprised to realize that there are several events that force you to get something good even if you don't want it. Like the Inventor guy, he forces a new card in your deck. Usually it's for the best, it's not a bad card, but based on how thin your deck is and what you do, adding a card just isn't something you want to do anyway. Same with the guy who trades relics. You have to trade one, even if all three of your options are important. It's kind of brutal, but I do like it. The events I like the most are the ones that let you enchant cards, like Parasite. That one rocks, it's an insane damage boost and the 2 HP is basically negligible. There's also the event that lets you get rid of the keyword exhaust from something, which it's good that you can only do that once because, oh boy, would people get up to some shit with that. You already can with just one, really. The Ancient system is super sick and a big shakeup from boss relics. I'm a boss relic lover, and I was worried about how takeable everything would feel. And the answer is it all works really well. Who knew the answer to a better run variety was to give actual varied options and not like 7 ways to get a 4th energy. Don't get me wrong, I miss my 4th energy, but when the options are as cool as they are, it's hard to complain. This is a different game with different standards after all. Some of my favorites are Archaic Tooth from Oribus, transforming your coolest starter card into a powerful full art card. There's Driftwood, which allows for full rerolls on card drops, which is insane. If you get that with Singing Bowl, you get to choose between 6 cards or 2 HP. Vaku, giving energy at the cost of doing your first turn every combat. There's also Nonu, which gives a bunch of random encounters 1 HP in the last act, which is a cool way to just kind of like force your way through. And then there's also Darv, who I've only encountered once so far. Looks like he offers you boss relics from the first game since he's a hoarder, which is hilarious. Compared to what the others offer, he feels a bit tame and not as exciting, but I actually really enjoy that he exists. It feels like a way of saying like, yeah, these are good, but look how much cooler and more fun most of the other options are. The overall difficulty of the game is pretty up there. Even if I won on my first run of Clad and Defect, it doesn't mean it was free. Regular hallway fights are pretty ridiculous in Act 2 especially. Not that Acts 1 and 3 don't have their select problem encounters. Living Fog, Ovacopter, and fucking Hunter Killer are some of the ones that make me check what room I'm in, and then I realize I'm not fighting for a relic, but just to survive. I like that there are hard encounters, even when they end my run, and none of them are stake plant, so it feels better. How the enemies fight is also sick, because there's so much thought and so many ideas applied to the roster of beasts. Inklets have Slippery, Exoskeletons with damage caps per instance of damage, Scrolls of Biting cutting into your max HP, Devoted Sculptor being a super cultist, Tunneler being an evolution of Shelled Parasite but awesome, Thieving Hopper, it like absconds with a card if you don't kill it quickly, it's awesome, and you can choose not to take it back even if you do kill it. I love Slay the Spire 1. I could never say it too many times, but god does this game take regular encounters to the next level. Basically every enemy has something they're doing and they're checking for different skills. Exoskeletons kind of force playing more attacks, or reward having multi-hits, or cheaper attacks, or being a doom-maxing Necrobinder. The scrolls penalize unblocked damage harshly, but deal damage with small attacks. Combine that with their individually low max HP, it creates a delicate balance of protecting your max HP with block and by killing scrolls. Tunneler demands you either have high block or high damage output. Thieving Hopper puts you on a time limit, testing your ability to burst through its HP while keeping up defenses and taking away its flight stacks. Inklets are looking for cheap attacks, multi-hits, or AoE, and there's plenty more where that came from. As long as your deck has a strong suit, there will be encounters that it does well against, and it struggles against. And that's the coolest shit ever. My biggest complaint with the game so far is that the enemy design doesn't always communicate the strength of the encounter. I mentioned regular enemies that look and play like elites, but there are bosses that could be elites, or even regular enemies, debatably. Like Soulfish, I like how the fight plays quite a bit, but it's just a big see-through fish. I wouldn't be surprised if it was an elite or a regular enemy, especially because the haunted ship exists and that's a normal enemy. I'm all for boss designs that fall outside the expected range though, like the Kin Priest. It's definitely not what I expect from a boss, but I can get down with it. So I wish either visual designs did a better job of communicating strength, or that the numbers made it more clear what exactly your expectations should be, because some of those regular enemies I mentioned are very healthy. The elites and act bosses are even better than the regular enemies. Some of them are pretty original, like the Frog Parasite going from being one larger monster into 4 smaller ones, and they spread their HP and the danger thinner, but they increase the threat of its status cards. Okay, well that's not too different from Slime Boss, but the scale of the fight is different, so it's fine. The Gardeners are great, as they all cycle from buffing to attacking, while also blocking once they were hit. It makes it harder to take out any individual snake unless you can circumvent their block with Poison or Doom. Skulking Colony is one of my favorites because it has a reskin of an ability that only the Heart had. Colony can't take more than 20 damage per turn, no matter what. It forces the fight into being at least 4 turns, but likely more since it's hard to have damage that consistently high in Act 1 while keeping your HP up. Unless you have Doom, of course. Entomancer's a dick and I hate him, but the actual design of the guy is badass, and the Daze effect is a really good deterrent from using a bunch of little attacks. Even if shivs are awesome and have always been a wingman for me when I go out for drinks. Decimillipede is like the Darklings, but disgusting and higher stakes. The balance you have to strike to survive when you lack AoE is tense, and depending how the cards are drawn, it's a legit choice of do I kill this knowing it's going to revive, or do I try and block it, or face tank it. I feel like Act 3 has the weakest elites fun-wise, but the Night Trio exists, so it balances out. Having one of them unupgrade all your cards while alive, and then the other makes them all ethereal while it's alive, it's so tough in a cool way. I like making the choice of if it's more impactful to lose cards for the rest of the fight, or to not have my cards at full strength. Also, there's a guy in the front that deals damage, he looks kinda cool. I feel at the moment that the Act 3 bosses aren't the best. That being said, I don't have much experience with Doormaker, and I've seen the Queen twice. Congrats on her transition, by the way. Or maybe the Collector was always a woman? I might not be woke enough, guys, I'm so sorry. Doormaker wasn't too crazy, but I like having to break the door to actually fight the boss. And apparently there was a beta update that made him a nightmare that's sort of been reversed, but I have not been able to play since that happened. I'm sure the Queen does stuff, but all I remember is she punishes poor draw and then gives you 99 stack of some debuffs. I swear though, 90% of my runs end with the test subject, or I guess the knowledge demon if I'm being real, but when I make it to Act 3, I really only see the test subject. So I know how that guy works just fine. I do like the scaling forms, and each health bar has a new gimmick from a previous elite, and that's really cool. And also let me say, thank the good lord that the strength gains do not transfer to phases 2 and 3, because that, Anyway, I think Act 2 probably has the 3 best bosses in the series right now, like legit, they're numbers 1, 2, and 3. The Insatiable was a jump scare after turn 1 with all the frantic escapes it puts into your deck, and the absolutely insane ability that brings you in for a guaranteed kill no matter what. The energy and card draw management is exquisite, and the boss is also threatening with traditional attacks, so you're managing more than usual, which is how a boss should be. Now, the Knowledge Demon is fucked up, bruh. This Abomination's design is super strange, and comes across as like a projection from this brain beneath it. It's a big stat check with its ridiculous HP, but the real kicker is it forces you to pick a debuff every so often. From what I've seen, one of the options is always damage every turn, and then the more interesting one on the right. I've seen reduce draw, cap on cards played per turn, and reduce energy. Every choice is agonizing, and oftentimes I feel the extra damage is the most manageable, and then I realize that this thing is pumping out so much damage that the extra 6, or even 13, is the make or break, and I either limp to the finish or I die. Kaiser Crab is like if the Spire shield and spear were awesome instead of stressful. The concept from the first game was sick, where you have an enemy on both sides of you, and whoever you face away from deals 50% more damage. Slay the Spire 2 sought to let players experience that without committing to a hard run, and the Kaiser Crab was born. I think having 2 claws that do 2 different things is great, and the scale of making it this huge enemy that surrounds you is even cooler than fighting 2 entities. This boss more than any other punishes a lack of attacks. Sounds silly to say, but Silent, Defect, and Necrobinder don't need a lot of attacks for some builds. And when that's the case, the crab can hit you hard and you can't stop it. There are a few non-attacking target cards and potions you can throw that work, but you get it. Silent and Necrobinder have more ways to navigate around it because of things that targetedly give things like this one gets poison or this one gets doom. The Defect really struggles though, because if you're not clawed up and you're just proccing orbs, then it can be a little hard. Anyway, this game's design from top to bottom really works for me, and I'm even more impressed than I expected it to be. I'm excited to play it more, read patches like it's the news, and unlock everything. There's an immense amount of care in everything in the game, and it creates a masterful experience. I'm sure someday I'll play this more than I ever played the first one, and I know Mega Crit has what it takes to make this game last forever. In conclusion, go buy this game right now and subscribe to the channel before you close the tab.